Hey guys, okay, here we go. Exercises 6 through 9 in your grammar book. So just a reminder, because I'm actually making these videos out of order because I messed up 3 and 5, which I probably confess in 3 and 5. But just a reminder that your exercises are in this book, right? In your little workbook. And if you don't remember things, one, you can look at the PowerPoint slides that we have, or use your handbook, because where the exercises that you're doing, like let's say today you're doing exercise 6, it says handbook section 13. Okay, oops, can you see that? Handbook section 13. So you go into your handbook and go to section 13, which is page 82. Because you flip around on the sides and find your tabs right there. But like I said, I'm doing this out of order. I'm sure I'll explain that in the video that you watched before this. So let's do it. We're going to do sentences, fragments, and run-ons. So you already know a lot about all that. This shouldn't be a hard exercise at all. Look at exercise 6, 7, 8, and 9 so you can see the instructions that our goal is to understand in this lesson so you can have éxito and success in doing these exercises. Look at exercise 6. It says, in a blank before each number, write S if the group of words contains only sentences. Write frag if the group of words contains a fragment. So in this one, pardon, you're just deciding whether or not it's a fragment or a sentence. Remember that a sentence is subject, verb, complete thought, right? Exercise 7, you're correcting which ones were fragments. So if you have the word frag for the fragments in the exercises, then you have to go on exercise 7 and correct those fragments and make them sentences. I'll tell you right now that there are 5 out of the 8 that are fragments in exercise 6 that you need to correct for exercise 7. Look at exercise 8. Now you're looking for run-on sentences. It says in exercise 8, some of the following groups of words are correctly written. Others contain run-ons. Put S before the number of the correctly written sentences and put RO before the run-ons. Okay, and you go into handbook section 14 if you need more examples and help with that. There are 5 run-ons, and in exercise 9 you will correct those run-ons. Here in the presentation, obviously, I'll remind you on how to correct run-on sentences. So let's do it. Okay, getting on with the information that you need in order to be successful in these exercises. It says a sentence is subject, verb, complete thought, like you guys already know, right? You need your subject, you need your verb, but you also need to complete your thought, like the complements that we talked about, that we will talk about in the lesson before. This one says Ben read the whole book in one weekend. The verb is what? Read. The subject is Ben. You complete the thought by saying, what did Ben read? He read the whole book. Okay, so that is an actual sentence. There is your complete thought. Ben read. Did you need everything else? No, but obviously you can't speak like that all the time. You need to put more details into things. Okay, a fragment is just part of a sentence. A fragment in anything is just part of something. So that's where there's no complete thought. You can have a subject and you can have a verb, but if you don't have a complete thought, you still have a fragment. So you can't just arbitrarily or randomly say, oh, here's your subject, here's your verb. It's not a fragment. No, it can still be a fragment. Look what it says right here. Although he prefers outdoor recreation. Look, if you're not actually reading that sentence well, you're going to see prefers as your verb, he is your subject, and you're going to say, yeah, that's a complete sentence, that's not a fragment. No, guys, be careful. Because when you put that word although, it's like a pesar, right? Okay, you start it like that, a pesar que él prefiere, etc., 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 and you don't finish it. Okay, so although he prefers outdoor recreation, what? That is now a beginning of a phrase, not a beginning of a sentence. So this would be called a fragment. Okay, so let's practice. Look at the first one. If we confess our sins. Complete sentence or fragment? Well, let's go over 3 checks. Does it have a verb? Confess. Does it have a subject? We. So read it. Does it have a complete thought? If we confess our sins. No, not a complete thought, because now that you put that word if there, now it's a phrase, because it's depending on something else that doesn't exist, right? So that one is a what? A fragment. But look at the next one. He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. What's your verb? Is. What's your subject? He. Is there a complete thought? He is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. Yes. Subject, verb, complete thought. It is a sentence. Okay, this last fragment that we just saw, that if we confess our sins, gives us a great opportunity to see how fragments can be corrected simply. Okay, a lot of times fragments, look what it says up in the box or up in the highlighted thing. A fragment can often be corrected by simply rejoining it to the sentence from which it had been separated. So sometimes, guys, you guys are writing and you just end the sentence too early, okay? Or anybody just ends the sentence too early. And so really it's supposed to go with the sentence that it got separated from, because in your mind you had it there, but you missed the complete thought, okay? So look, here, all you had to do is join it to the sentence below it. If we confess our sins, comma, he is faithful and just to forgive us our sins. So that's one great way to correct your fragments. Okay, guys, let's practice it. We have here, when he arrived, period, we all yelled, surprise. Okay, look at the first one. When he arrived. Verb, arrived. Subject, he. Complete thought, no. Okay, when he arrived. Now that we put that word when in there, we have started a phrase, and we need to, it's a dependent clause, which we'll get into again, but in case you remember that, it's a dependent clause, because now it's going to depend on something else now that we put the word when in there. Look at the next one, though. We all yelled surprise. Verb, yelled. Subject, we. Complete thought, yes, we all yelled surprise. Okay, so first one's a fragment, second one's a sentence. How would you correct that? Do what I just told you, right? Just combine it, and I'm about to show you what it looks like. Okay, there it is. The first one's a fragment, the second one's a sentence. And then this is how you can correct it. When he arrived, comma, we all yelled, surprise! Okay, and that's how you can correct your fragments super easily. Now, can you correct all your fragments like that? No, but that's one of the most common ways, because a lot of times it's that we are completing our thought in our head, but our punctuation gets messed up. Okay, so now you know about fragments. Again, subject, verb, complete thought. If there's no complete thought there, then it's a fragment. Look around with your fragment to see if you had the phrase somewhere, it just ended up in a different sentence, and it should have been combined with that phrase that you made into a fragment, okay? Look at this, this screen. Now we're going to be talking about run-ons. Run-ons, remember guys, are sentences that just run on and on and on, okay? 2 or more sentences incorrectly joined, okay? What does that mean? Look at this one, for example. Glenn managed to find the time. It was important to him. Okay, Glenn managed to find the time. That is a complete sentence. Managed is your verb, Glenn is your subject, and you have a complete thought there. He managed to find the time. Then you have another complete sentence. It was important to him. Was is a verb, it is a subject, there's a complete thought there. Guys, you cannot combine 2 sentences with just a comma. So that's a run-on, because now it's 2 or more sentences combined incorrectly. There are 4 ways to correct a run-on, which we've gone over before, but it's really good to always remember them. The first one is simply make both of those sentences into separate sentences. Put a period and a capital between them. Okay? So it would be just Glenn managed to find the time, period, capitalize it, different sentence. Number 2 is that you would have a comma and a coordinating conjunction. So you already have your comma in between Glenn managed to find the time and it was important to him. So all you would need to do is put the and, okay? And you're about to see that on the next page and you have it in your notes. Glenn managed to find the time and it was important to him, because you remember your coordinating conjunctions are what? Fanboys. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. Okay? Number 3, you could put a semicolon. Remember, a semicolon is basically just like a period, except it gives variety in your writing. That is not just period, 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 short sentence, period, short sentence, period, short sentence, period. And you don't need to capitalize after it. Okay, and then number 4 is subordination. And I'm just going to show you that with an example instead of just throwing that out there. Subordination. Okay, so let's look at the next thing. Okay, so here you see the first 3 that I was talking about. Not subordination yet, but don't worry, I promise it's coming to show you an example. Glenn managed to find the time and it was important to him. So that would be your coordinating conjunction. Glenn managed to find the time, it was important to him, semicolon. Or Glenn managed to find the time, period, capital letter. It was important to him, right? You can also say, in order to do like subordination, you're about to see an example, but you could say something like this. You could take it was important to him, which is not the most important part of the sentence. The most important part of the sentence is Glenn managed to find the time. You could make it was important to him in the beginning. You could say, because it was important to him, comma, Glenn managed to find the time. So subordination is where you take one of the 2 phrases and make it less important by putting one of those phrase words in it. Okay, for example, although, when, if, the words that you just saw for the fragment things, and also because it was important to him, comma, Glenn managed to find the time. So let's keep looking at that. Okay, here we go. The sleek convertible screeched to a halt at the light. Then it pulled away with a roar. 2 complete sentences only combined by a comma. Cannot happen like that. So let's see what we can do. Well, you can put a comma with a what? Coordinating conjunction. So you can just say the sleek convertible screeched to a halt at the light and then it pulled away. Or you can do what? You can put a semicolon. Okay, you just take out that comma, put a semicolon. You can also put a period with a capital letter. And then here's the last one. You can also make one of the phrases not as important by subordinating it. Remember, sub means below, by using a phrase word. After the sleek convertible screeched to a halt at the light, it pulled away with a roar. Okay? That adds a lot of variety, and I would play with some of those words to try to help you to do that. Okay, guys, that's it. It's just fragments and run-ons. It's interesting if you look at your book, okay, if you go to section 14 about run-ons, it's interesting that it gives you more examples, right? But also, it gives you kind of the reasons why you would do each correction. Like, for example, if you look in your book with me on 14.2, it says, if the sentences contain separate and distinct ideas, that's when you should use a capital letter and a period. So if those 2 sentences are completely different ideas, that's when you should use a period. But letter B says, if the sentences are closely related as to form one thought and are equally important, then use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Okay, so if they seem like they're very, very similar, use a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Also, instead of a comma and coordinating conjunction, letter C says if the ideas are so closely related as to form one thought and equally important, use a semicolon. So basically those two are like the same thing. And letter D says if they're so closely related to form one thought but are not equally important, you should subordinate the less important sentence. Okay, so if you can obviously see one thing is not as important, subordinate that using a subordinate word. And some of the subordinate words are, unfortunately, I looked in the book, they don't have like a little list of them, easy to find, unless it's in a different section I didn't see. But the words would be when, if, although, after, before, because, words like that you can use to subordinate. And remember, you can take that phrase from the back and move it to the front, okay? Or you can subordinate it even from the back side, but it's kind of usually the subordinate clause is going to come in front, okay? So that's just something to think about while you're working on correcting your run-on sentences. Remember, there are 5 fragments in section 6 and 5 run-ons in section 8. Let me know if you need any help.